When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there, everybody. How are you today? Do you know, I'm sitting here feeling a bit bad about myself because I realise that I'm in a bit of a sluggy state. I've been looking at today's guest's activities, and she is a lady who really kind of just bounces off of every wall given the opportunity. And I realise that I just sit in the same position for hour after hour. So I've got to do something about it, and that's what this show is all about. It's making us become better versions of ourselves. And today's guest is a lady who, quite simply, is probably the fittest person that we've ever had on the show. Just reading her bio exhausted me, but wow, I tell you what, she's packing a lot into her day. As a professional golfer and fitness guru, she believes that all of us have a responsibility to develop our fitness programs into our daily work life. It doesn't matter if it means that we do it whilst commuting, walking the dog, or watching the latest edition of Breaking Bad. She shows us the ways to do it. By making informative and slightly unusual videos that have gone viral on the web, she demonstrates that this isn't just a theory, it's actionable advice. You can hang on a lamppost, swing on a door frame, or just push against a wall whilst juggling your daily tasks. There's no excuse not to keep fit. And this idea has really taken on, and now with numerous appearances on TV shows and other media, she's highly sought after to spread her message. So did this focus on fitness and the teaching of it come naturally to her, or was she an overweight person who had the epiphany to change, or does she see a desire in the world to take on her advice? Or are we more interested in a night in with Netflix and a huge bag of Doritos? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show the creator of the smartest, sexiest workout videos ever, the one and only Andia Winslow. How are you, Andia?
I'm great. What an introduction.
Well, you deserve it, don't you? Because some of the things you can do with your body as well, I'm going to have those as my screensaver, just so I feel bad about myself. You can do things that humans can't do.
Well, I've seen a lot of humans do them, in fact, increasingly, especially in New York. And so I think it's really inspiring and inspired to see folks moving about and being creative in their wellness goals and trajectories. So I think human beings have a lot more ability than they give themselves credit for. And I think people need to express it and explore it. And I think they'll find it's fun. It's something that they can enjoy.
So you're in New York. Let's show where you live. So you're a New Yorker. Are you in the hub of New York, sort of Manhattan area, or are you out in Brooklyn or Queens? Whereabouts are you based?
I was in the hub. I lived uptown in Harlem, and actually I just moved last week to Brooklyn. So now I'm a Brooklynite, and it's different. Actually, right now I'm sitting in my garden speaking to you, which is amazing because I didn't have a garden or any space when I lived in Manhattan. So it's a nice feeling.
So it's 7 o'clock in the morning out there. You're sitting there. You've got a nice cup of coffee. The sun's shining. How's your day going to pan out?
Well, today I speak with you here in this interview, and I'm excited to start my day that way. And then I will probably take a walk or a bike ride around the area. From there, I've got a couple clients in the city who I work with, both teaching golf and also fitness folks. And then I'll probably walk about. Usually what I do is I like to take my little red notebook, I stuff it in my back pocket, and I just walk around. And if something inspires me, I write it down or I take a picture and memorize where I was, because I always am looking for scenes for future cinematic endeavors, and I just like to location scout. Even if there's no goal in mind, I just love looking at places and exploring and adventuring, in fact.
Well, you're in the perfect place in New York, because I think it's more than any place on earth. It was the place that every corner I walked around, it was like deja vu. You'd walk around a corner and you'd think, I've seen this. And then realise that you're looking at something from Ghostbusters or When Harry Met Sally or something. It is.
Isn't that awesome?
It is. Every single corner, really, there was something that jumped into my head. And it's the only place I think I've ever been to that I felt that I'd been there before, even though I hadn't, just because it's so on the telly and it's so in movies all the time.
And also just I think it's so very diverse. So you have people from all over the world, and it's so enriching, it's so exciting, and you can actually, the energy of the other people around you is so infectious, and I think that's what makes New York one of a kind, at least in this hemisphere, and I love it.
So where were you born? You weren't born in New York.
I was not. I'm from the West Coast. I'm actually the Pacific Northwest. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, and I've steadily moved south. I was raised in Seattle, Washington, which I imagine has similar climate to you all in the United Kingdom.
Just rains all the time. Oh,
Rains all the time, but lovely, very green, very green.
it just rains all the time. We don't even you don't even see the greenness because you're running from one house to another.
I've got a question. Do you all use umbrellas there?
No, we don't. That's funny. I get asked that a lot. And no, we just kind of get wet, basically. I suppose I used to carry an umbrella around. I used to work up in the city of London a lot. So most of the time I was just in a suit. And it was quite easy to carry a little umbrella around. But the kind of classic, bowler hat and umbrella image that you have of sort of English businessmen, no, doesn't really exist, I suppose. Do you think that we're all kind of like James Bond as well?
Sure, of course. I mean, especially you, I'd imagine.
I am.
Is that not true?
I'm probably the closest to James Bond you will ever see.
And see, that's why we're having this conversation, because I knew there was greatness in you, David. I knew it.
I'm squeezing that greatness out every chance I can. But unfortunately, I squeeze it out in a very kind of gentle way. Because I'm looking at you at the moment, and it's weird. I'm flicking through images while we're talking, and I'm seeing you sort of run over hurdles, and you're doing this amazing kind of balancing business where the only thing that I can describe it, you've become like a human seesaw, and your whole body is pivoting on your elbows, and your elbows seem to be pushed higher up your body somehow to give your heavy part, I suppose, your head and your chest, and the ability to balance against your lower half. Now, that's not human, is it? How can you do that?
I don't know. It's just experimentation. I don't actually take yoga. I'm not a yogi, but I saw an older woman, it was 96, in fact. I saw her doing this move in a park, and I said, what in the world is that? I went and Googled it. It's called Mayurasana. It's a asana, it's a pose, a yoga pose, and it symbolizes eternity and balance. And it actually symbolizes reaching from the past and reaching to the future, which is perfect for join up dots. So it's about eternity and infinity. And the move is supposed to center yourself. Your elbows are placed into your gut, and the gut is basically the center of your spirit, your body, your being. And so I think it's very symbolic in that way, and relevant to the show, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you know she was 96? Did you go up and ask her? Did you go, oh my God, look what you're doing?
Asked her name, and then someone around told me that she was a famous yogi who is, I think they did a special on her on one of the major channels, and sure enough, that was her, and she's amazing.
Well, I think it's amazing just controlling your bladder at 96, let alone balancing like that.
Yes, it's very awesome. The human body again, and the human spirit.
Have you always felt that? Because I imagine in Alaska, my image of Alaska is obviously sort of country and wilderness, but generally unpleasant weather, sort of cold and sort of miserable. Is that wrong? When you was a child in Alaska, do they have lovely sunny days and it's a very pleasant place to be?
Well, I only lived in Alaska till age 5, but my memory is very vivid of high snow. I also recall days that didn't get dark, and I recall days that didn't get light. But I do remember, seeing whales, and I remember seeing animals, and those images are very vivid in my mind. And so I think it is lovely. It is also cold, but it's beautiful. The sun does shine.
And do you ever go back there? Do you ever go and sort of recreate your childhood? Take your kids back to Alaska. This is where Mum grew up.
You know what? I have not been back to Alaska in some time, but actually I want to take a trip at the end of this summer and go. So I'm actually planning that at the moment. So that should be a nice home going. I was raised in Seattle, though, and Seattle's obviously a bit more cosmopolitan, and that's also another lovely city to be raised. And it's beautiful. The Pacific Northwest, Vancouver, all those areas, just very beautiful, clean. We have water on all sides, trees on all sides, mountains on all sides. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm so inspired to be an outdoor person and active, because I was raised in that way.
You think that's a sort of the nuts and bolts of it, because you've seen it at such a young age, you were inspired to build your life around that?
I think so. And also it's your parents and how they raise you. My parents raised me to be very active. We were always on the go, always exploring and learning new things and encountering new adventure. And I can actually remember my mom saying when we'd go out during the day, it's time for the adventure. Let's go on an adventure. And I still do that today. Saturdays are adventure day. Saturdays I have no plans at all. I'm completely off from work. and I adventure. And that's what I do. And it's something that's been true ever since I was a wee person. So I'm really enjoying that common thread in my life.
And do your kids like that feeling of adventure, or do they go, "Oh, Mum, no, I just want to lay here. I've been at school all week. I just want to lay here on the sofa and watch telly"?
Thankfully, I do not have any kids.
I thought you did. I'd read on your website.
I have. There are kids in my life, both little kids and big kids, but they're just friends and family. I don't actually have any children of my own. I made a video with children, and that was a video showing parents how they can be active with their kids. But those weren't my children. Those were very good friends' kids. I'm not sure that I can manage kids at this time because I'm a kid myself, so I'm not sure that would be the best situation for them.
You got the perfect life. You can borrow kids when you want them and just give them back.
And yes, I borrow frequently. I go hang out with kids, we play, and then I say farewell until the next time.
Fascinating stuff. Because that's a key point to Join Up Dots, what you're saying. You are a kid. And literally every person that I speak to who is successful, quote unquote successful, they pretty much are still their kid self. They found themselves again, and they've gone back to the passions that they had as children, and they've managed to develop that into an industry and a business. And you're exactly the same, aren't you?
I would say so. I mean, my favorite time in life was probably age 7 through age 12. And I just remember just having so much fun and just being alive. And there was a moment probably the very end of high school through college where I felt I felt like an Autobot. This is what you're supposed to do. You study well, you study hard, you go to an Ivy League school, you graduate, this is what you do, and this is how it's going to be. And I felt I wouldn't say dead, but I felt very unfulfilled and confused. And kind of had a moment of a crisis of conscience when I was actually a caretaker for a grandfather. And he re-inspired my need to be in the moment and be my younger version of myself. And I'm very, very glad and honored that I had that experience. And it propelled me to this, which is being an older person than I was years ago, but being younger at heart and younger at spirit and younger in my daily actions.
And did you realize when you were with your granddad that it was a fundamental shift that he was presenting to you?
My grandfather and I spent quite a lot of time together in his final year. He was 90 and I was in my early 20s. And without teaching me overtly, he was teaching me how to infuse play into my life and to be a younger version of myself, the self that was very happy and excitable and always on the go and always looking for new opportunities to explore. And I think I didn't realize it until after he passed that that's what he was doing, but a very wise man, in fact.
He gave you a gift, didn't he, Bear? He really did. It's a gift.
Most definitely.
So many of us can't see. We're so wrapped up into living a life that we feel that others expect us to live. For him to be able to say that and pretty much say to you, don't worry about anybody else. Don't worry about what other people think. Just be unique to yourself and enjoy every day. That's wonderful, isn't it?
Sure, and also this issue of timeline. I think we were in a society where the faster you can achieve and the younger you can achieve things, that you're valued more. You should value yourself more. And he said, "Look, I'm 90. I'm old. What's the rush? Now I'm just sitting here. You can explore and achieve things on your own timeline and don't compare yourself. And manage your expectations. There's no need for you to do things at the same rate anyone else did. And take your time, enjoy it."
But you haven't taken your time, have you? Because just the fact that you were a professional golfer and a very, very good professional golfer, that takes a huge amount of time and practice.
It does, but I started at a early age, so it was kind of the natural progression of things. There's still more that I want to achieve in the golf world, and currently I'm teaching, and I take great pride in that and really, really enjoy teaching people to advance their golf balls in better ways. But you know, it's interesting. I mean, timing has to be perfectly right to play golf on tour. Your finances have to be right mentally and physically. You must be prepared and injury-free. And I think timing is something I'm learning more about, something you can't control. And I think in the past I tried to control things and steer them, and that's not how the universe works.
So for our listeners, give us an indication of how good you were as a professional golfer. Well, you're still a professional golfer.
Still a professional golfer. Right now I don't tour, so there are different types of professional golfers. There's those who are administrators. They manage clubs and golf courses. There are those who teaching professionals, which I am one. And then there are those who are tour. And there are several there are different levels of touring. There's developmental tours, kind of like I would say a farm league in baseball, for example. And then there's the LPGA and PGA tour, which are the major tours. And so I've bounced around between those tours and really enjoyed traveling around the world and meeting new people and just exploring myself and challenging myself in a game that you really can't master. It's an eternal challenge, golf. Have you ever played?
I used to play quite a lot. Not very good. I'd be the classic one that I'd have a belter of a round and think I was, Arnold Palmer. And then the next round, I was rubbish. And I couldn't understand how I could hit the ball perfectly one day and the next day it was all over the shop.
That's what golf does. It makes us mad because you're not the only one. Even at the high level, people shoot 62 and next day shoot 75 and they say, what the heck? What's going on? But that's why we play, because we're obsessed with it.
Well, why do you think that is the case then? For somebody, because what's always surprised me with golf, that you get a top player, say like Tiger Woods, for example. Tiger Woods is so on his game, it's untrue. And then he gets somebody who wasn't the greatest player in the world to be able to coach him how to hit a ball. And for many of us, we would go, surely he can hit a ball already. He's Tiger Woods. But he still has coaching to get him to that peak performance. Why do they do that?
Well, for Tiger Woods, he's a great example, but he's different than most golfers in that he knows what needs to happen. He's just hiring someone to be a watchful eye. And Tiger Woods also is someone who is not satisfied with things being consistent and good. He's consistently challenging himself. And that's why he changes his swing so often, because he's winning majors with a swing and then he says it's time to change it, because his mind is always going and always growing and always investigating. I think that's why Tiger is so unique. He doesn't just stay with what works. He's always trying to be better. And again, that coach he has now and coaches he's had in the past, they may not be better golfers than him, but they're a watchful eye who understand his personality and what he needs as an athlete trying to compete at the highest level.
Is that a good idea to change his swing, or is that just tinkering?
If it's good for him and he feels comfortable in it and that's what he wants to do, I can't comment on whether it's good or bad. I mean, if things are working, people often say it's very trite, but they say, if it's broke, don't fix it. Well, I think there's always time to change. And what happens if you get bored or you want to explore? I mean, he's obviously an explorer. He wants to see how good he can be and if he can be the best and match golf. And it's because, again, golf, you can't master golf. You can't master it. No one can. And I think he's trying to get as close as humanly possible. He's probably a superhero at this point, but close as humanly possible to mastering this game. That's the eternal challenge.
Do you have any Tiger Woods kind of characteristics in you? Are you somebody that's constantly tinkering at your performance? Looking at what you're doing at the moment, and we will touch on that, there's so many elements that you have developed from a theme. Are you waking up each morning going, I think I'll just change what I did yesterday slightly to see how it works?
I think I'm more Dr. Seuss than Tiger Woods.
In what way?
I just like, because I think Dr. Seuss, all of his literature, he bred this idea of adventure and of being on your way and of exploring and not sitting idly by. And that's how I manage my life at this point. People say, oh, you're doing so many different things. Aren't you confused? Isn't your plate full? But I enjoy doing different things. And actually the things that seem disparate on the face are actually, they're actually more connected than not. Fitness is very similar to golf, and filmmaking is very similar to fitness. And, rocking a runway is very similar to athletics. People just don't realize because they think of these things in a compartmentalized way, but it doesn't matter what it is you're doing if it's you doing it. You bring to the table what makes these things unique and what makes them similar. And so I think for folks who are trying to live a more free life, they should realize that you are the thing that makes these things unique, not the things themselves. It depends on how you approach the things you do and the things that you want to do.
You say that again, because that's a key point to this episode. And all the listeners out there, just keep on rewinding this bit over and over again. You say that.
It's about you and what you bring to the table. It's about your uniqueness, not about what it is you're doing per se. It's about what you do and how you do it and how you're approaching it mentally and physically and spiritually and all that. And energetically, it's about the uniqueness of you.
It's an absolute key point there. I had quite a few people that I've been coaching, and they all have this idea and they want to replicate what somebody else is doing. And I say to them, take the good parts and take the structure, but make it yourself. And that's the hardest part for them, actually breaking it down and just being them. And once we actually get to that point, it's almost like a light bulb goes on above their head, and it's like, What? So you're saying I just have to be myself? Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Just be yourself. It's so mind-blowing. You know, I switch on the mic here now, and I'm pretty much myself. And I am creating this show. It's going great guns. And I still have that devil and angel on my shoulder where I kind of think, hang on, it's got to be harder than this. Work has to be hard. I'm having good time here. This is great. I could do this all the time. You're just being yourself. Yes, once again. Once you do that, it's the powerhouse, isn't it? That's when it all comes together for you.
It does, and then something happens that I'm learning now actually is you begin to be overwhelmed by the opportunities that are presented to you. So when I was in need of trying to figure out what I wanted to do or where I was going or how things were working, I was consistently thinking future thinking. Oh, I wish I could have that. I wish I wish I could do what that person's doing. I stopped that, and now there are so many things offered to me, and I don't even know how to decide. There's this, there's that, because I'm just being myself and walking to my own purpose. And always remembering the moral that comparison is the thief of joy. If you're comparing yourself to someone who you're not, you will never achieve what they do because, again, that's not you, that's them. And also you can't then enjoy the things that you have, the things that you're working towards that are unique to you.
It's fascinating. This is I say this a lot. It's like being in therapy for me. When I listen to you lot talking, I kind of think, oh my God, I think about my own life. But even 6 months ago, I was commuting every single day into a job, and I would do that 9 till 5. And it was the same job every single day. Nothing really changed. And now I'm doing this. Even this morning, I had an email. I'm doing this course in Berlin. Why don't you come over? You know, I'll pay for you to come across. Really, you know. And then I get these other requests. And if I was jumping on all those opportunities, there's not going to be a show. I would never be here. I'd be having a kick-ass life, whizzing around the world doing stuff. But there's so many opportunities coming to me now, and I kind of think, how has this happened? How have I got to the age of 44 and never had these things occur before? But now, on a daily basis, I'm sort of batting them away like wasps around my head because I think, no, I've got to focus on what I'm doing. And yes, it'd be lovely to do that, but I can't. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's the power of positive thinking and the power of being free mentally.
When you are doing your things, because let's cut to the chase and really talk about it, because you have got the fit cycle where you basically are teaching people to be able to be fit within a time frame that fits them, basically. So if you are really busy, there's no excuse for being fit. You can still do stuff, and you can, as I say, press against the wall or hang on a door frame or do a few stretches or whatever. Was that a moment of realization to you? Wow, we really need to do something about this. Or was that something that for years you were saying, wouldn't it be good if somebody does this? And then finally you realize you was the person to do it?
That's a good question. I think it's probably a combination of both factors. I first started the movies. If people haven't seen them, the movies they're short vignettes. They're maybe 3 to 5 minutes long, and it's not just a fitness video where I show you do some squats, do some push-ups. It's actually a movie, and there's a storyline, there's a plot twist and character development, and so the movies show folks I'm on a journey, and this is what I do on my journey, and then I reach my destination. It had nothing to do with fitness, but I got my fitness in. When I lived in Arizona for a time, I lived near a reservation that had the largest population of type 2 diabetes folks in the entire world. This is in the United States and just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And so I was very distressed by this because these were my community members. And I had a little cell phone, and I would put it into a water bottle upside down and put the water bottle, a gallon water bottle, I'd put it on a table and use that as my tripod. And I would film little tiny fitness videos showing, here's how you do some push-ups. Here's how you use odd objects around your home to get fit. And they started very simple, 30 seconds, a minute. When I got to New York City, I have a friend who's a filmmaker, Monique Walton, and she said, let's build these stories out more, make them stories, in fact, make them enjoyable to a different audience who probably wouldn't be watching fitness videos, and tell a story, because really it's about the stories of people's lives. We did that, and the response was amazing. And I think that's when I realized, oh, this is something that could be a movement-based movement. This is something that actually people can get behind and be excited by, not just something that's cluttering the landscape with more fitness videos and more, this is what you should be doing. This is more of a story and people telling their stories and expressing themselves through the stories of their daily lives. And it's been very, very, very fun.
Because I was watching one this morning when you was on the Underground, and it starts off with, oh, I'm late for a meeting or whatever, and you come flying out your house and you get on the train, and it's all pretty standard stuff, stretching and pressing against things. And then you get onto the Underground, and then this very handsome black guy turns up, and then suddenly you're kind of stripping off in front of each other, and I was thinking, hello, where's this going? And it didn't quite go where I wanted it to go, to be honest. But was that a conscious thing, or was that something that you just thought, I need to add an element to make it a bit spicy?
That was a conscious thing, because a lot of times you're on the train and you see that cute guy, that cute girl sitting across from you, and think, oh, I wonder what it would be like for us to, dance. Or it was a moment of playing to your imagination. I mean, because that's what people think. You see someone on the train who lights your fancy, or you start to daydream. That was a daydream sequence, and you can be fit in your daydreams. If you can't actually do it, let's think about it at least and let your mind go there. And I'm sure that the mind has a great effect on the body. So you can think about fitness, even if you can't be in fitness at the time. I think that affects change too. Some kind of chemical level, I imagine.
What's fascinating about this is that you are a classic example for Join Up Dots. The tagline for the show, as I say time and time again, is connecting our pasts to build our future. And you really can join up your dots, can't you? You can look back and go, yes, when I was younger, I was making these little movies. Now I'm making these bigger movies. When I was little, I was doing this, and now I'm doing that. And you haven't lost that innocence of childhood. You are genuinely playing and making a good living.
Yes, genuinely playing. I play every day. I aspire to play. If a day goes by that I don't play, my mood is sour. I should say that too. Let me be honest. So play must be part of my life. It's inherent in my life. And I try to inspire folks around me to play as well. Playing for them may not be jumping about. Playing for them might be doing voiceovers, or it might be making film, or writing books, or taking photographs, but playing nonetheless. And I think a lot of my friends are now entrepreneurs who have taken their leap of faith and are now playing in their profession, and they're loving their lives as a result.
I love my life. You love your life. Everyone who comes on this show loves their life, and they're all doing what they want to do. It's as simple as that. But so many people out there, it's craziness. But so many people out there listening to this, and I get emails in, and I do calls with them. And if somebody sort of comes through to me and say, "Can I have a chat?" I will do. I sort of go through to them. It's getting busier and busier and busier now. I used to do it all the time, and now I have to say, "Look, I can give you 10, 15 minutes, whatever." But all of them are just trapped mentally. They've got the skills. They've got the opportunities. They just think that work has to be hard. And I hope that this show becomes a movement as well, that people will listen to it. And if they listen to one show or 100 shows or 1,000 shows, one day suddenly the penny will drop and they will go, I know what they're talking about. And I can't see why it took me so long to realise life doesn't have to be hard.
Agreed. I co-sign everything you just said.
Oh, I'm getting good at this, Andia. If you're co-signing, then that's good for me. I'm going to play a little speech now, because it says pretty much what I have just said, and we've been saying all the way through the show. But this is Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
What do you think about that?
Excellent advice. Simple and very true. There are alternatives. There's this or that, but choose that which makes you happy and also pays your bills.
So you are naturally smiley. You are like a kind of Tigger, aren't you? You're just jumping around like a lunatic every day and having great fun. You must be. You must be a bit annoying, I must imagine. Are you?
Oh, come now. I wouldn't use the word lunatic or Tigger, but yes, I am jumping around. Maybe a bunny. Maybe a bunny.
but I've got an 8-year-old daughter, or 9-year-old. She a complainer. I said 8, and she's jumping around all the time doing handstands and cartwheels.
We would probably get along famously, your daughter and I.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. And we kind of say, just sit down for a while. Can you just give us 5 minutes without doing handstands and stuff? And do people find your exuberance engaging all the time, or do sometimes people go, oh, just calm down a little bit, Andia, just sit down and let's just be calm?
You know what? I have a stoic and reflective side as well. So I do have, probably don't have an in between. I'm either very excitable or very subdued. But the excitableness is not anything that encroaches on anyone else's space. I'm very aware of personal space and boundaries and pleasantries. So it's not annoying. Well, maybe I should ask somebody and survey them and correct you. But I don't think it's annoying. I think it's more, what would the word be?
Engaging
And an infectious energy, I would say. I would classify it that way.
Yeah.
I think making people laugh is great. Physical humor is funny. I'm not a comedian, but I enjoy making people feel situations are lighter and having more levity in life, because, I've been in the other place. I've been depressed. I've been sad, or being a perfectionist and being too hard on myself. And every once in a while you see glimpses of that. Everyone does. But I prefer being happy and buoyant and light. And that's my preference.
Absolutely. I think that should be everyone's preference. So have you had a time on the Join Up Dots timeline, have you had a dot when you look back on it and you go, and we call it our big dot, where it's a terrible time, really is the worst thing that you've gone through, but you can look back on it now with new eyes and go, yeah, thank God for that. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have become who I am now.
I would refer back to the grandfather situation. I was with him. He was terminally ill with cancer, and I watched someone die. So that was probably the worst of times, but also the best of times, because I got to see, a life transition. I got to see what the end of life looks like, but I also kind of feel like it was a rebirth for me and for my relationship with my own present and my own future. And I look back at that time as being something that was very difficult to go through and to recover from, but something that set me on the path that I'm on now. So I would never give it back.
Yeah, that's the big dot. And so many people say to me, yes, it was my worst time and my best time. And I've had people say to me, they've actually told me stories that they were in a car just about to commit suicide and something happened.
Oh, wow.
And they changed direction and they look back on it and they go, that was my best time ever and my worst time ever. It's amazing that, isn't it?
It's very amazing. But you've got to listen and be open and learn from it. You can't just pass by. I think that's the key.
So when you got this idea, and one of the themes that we're trying to get across to people is that when you started on this path, you didn't have all the answers. You just knew that you wanted to do something. What was one of the first things that you did, away from being a professional golfer, to actually get your website up and the business going and get noticed?
Moved to New York. I moved to New York. There's a sidebar to my story, and that is after I was with my grandfather, I went back to Arizona, where I was a professional golfer, and I was a little bit of a loss recovering from that. And I got a phone call from the United States Olympic Committee and a program called Black Ice Concept, which is recruiting athletes to join the Winter Olympic movement. And so I moved to Lake Placid, New York, where we have an Olympic training center, and I was recruited to train for the bobsled and skeleton, which are winter sliding sports you just probably saw in the Olympics in Sochi, Russia. And so I was a golfer turned skeleton slider. And that was a very strange transition. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? I went from the desert, the arid deserts, to, the mountains and the cold. And I think that transition there kind of let me know, look, whatever it is that you're doing, it can be as disparate as skeleton to golf, but it has to involve motion, it has to involve action. I think that was a turning point. And when I came down to New York City, I knew that I had to be involved in sport and movement, both in my own life and helping others do the same in theirs. So I think the New York City move was what really made me get noticed and express myself in a way that was more tangible and tractionable.
Well, was that not scary, though? You're sliding down on a tray or something, aren't you? Was that not terrifying?
Sure, terrifying, but managed terror. It was managed terror, but exhilarating, and you felt alive. I tell folks sliding skeleton is like eating a peppermint patty and jumping off of a cliff at the same time. It's minty, it's fast, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you kind of do. So very, very interesting experience, and one that I wouldn't give back either, but it helped me transition from professional sports, playing them as a competitor, to teaching people about performance and agility in their own sports.
So it kind of developed that inner confidence that you could tackle most things and overcome.
I think so. Because the transition was so stark. I think it showed me that really there is nothing that you cannot do as long as you're organized and willing to do the work and put in the time.
Because nowadays we have got such opportunity. As you were saying, opportunities are everywhere. But for so many people, they can't see them because they're just on the rat race. And they need to step back, don't they? And they need to read books. They need to look at blogs. They need to just become aware of what's around them. And the more you do that, because that's what I did, I just knew somewhere in me that I needed something else in my life, and I had no idea what it was. So I just sort of flicked around on the computer because it was in front of me, having a look. And you look at one site, and then you go to another site, and it just sort of leads on. And ultimately, you get to something, and you think, I never knew you could do this. People are making a living doing this. Let's have a look at that. And that sort of leads you on to something else. And that ability to become aware and step away from the 9 to 5, putting an MP3 in your ears on the train and just listening to the latest Coldplay album or whatever, and then going through a box set of Breaking Bad in the evening, that doesn't progress you, does it? It's pleasurable, but it doesn't progress you. You've got to become aware.
Yes, most definitely. That's a great word, awareness.
When did you become aware that what you were doing wasn't just a flight of fancy, but it was something that could be totally developed into a business?
When I started receiving emails and letters from people around the world telling me that they were inspired, or they were brought to flares of emotion that they didn't expect, or that they wanted to do the same thing. People sending me pictures of them working out with their kids. People telling me in very lengthy letters about their story of diabetes or hypertension. That was what I think really made me realize, wait a second, this is something that people are taking to, and something that's actually inspiring sustainable change. And I think really my goal in life is to be part of sustainable change, be the change that I can be in my own space, in my own time, around the people that I encounter, and hopefully scale it at some point. That's what I'm working on now. But I think hearing the human stories, that's what told me that this was real and this was right and this was the right trajectory for me.
Did that scare you a bit, though? I was having a conversation with a podcaster last night, and he was saying that he actually got scared once his show started to become successful, because he realized that the words he was giving out, ultimately, he wanted them to have a positive effect. But ultimately, somebody might come back to him and go, you screwed my life up. I listened to you. I did what you said, or I thought I did what you said, and it hasn't panned out. And he suddenly realized that he's never had that yet, but one of these days that's going to come back to them, and it's going to say, yeah, I did that. I tried to make myself a seesaw with the elbows, and now I've done me back in, and I can't even get off the floor. Are you aware of the sort of responsibility that you are building by providing that value and solving the problems that people are looking for?
I believe so. I think ultimately there is free will, and everyone needs to be responsible for themselves. But something that my grandfather told me, another grandfather, that the responsibility of being the first is to make certain that you're not the last. And I'm not the first to be involved in fitness, but I think I'm the first to be Andia Winslow. I'm the first to be myself. So my responsibility is to continue being myself and enjoying my life, but also to let folks know that it's okay to be yourself and okay to enjoy your life in the ways you want to. I think that it's very scary for me when I realize that the human element is the greatest element, greater than any chemical on the periodic table. The human element is the most profound, and it will be the thing that sustains us, and it'll be a thing that lasts longer than anything else, not even memory. So I think responding to and being in tune with your fellow human is the most important thing you can do. And it's something that's been very fulfilling to me, and I think it inspires all the work that Monique and I do when we make films.
Because you are doing something that's brilliant. It plays to your strengths. You love it. It is simply playing, but you're providing huge value to people. You're solving problems, and ultimately it's scalable. As you say, it is scalable. This could go as big as you want it to be. Now that's amazing when you think that, especially from that first moment when you bought your first URL and you're on GoDaddy, whatever, and it's just a WordPress site and you're not even sure how to use it and you're moving boxes around and suddenly it starts taking shape. When you look at what you've achieved now and the fact that this guy from the United Kingdom is saying, wow, this is going to be huge, that must blow your mind.
It does. It does. Wow. Yes, it does. This is great. I mean, I think, especially with the access we all have, the web is really making things tangible. It's making things smaller. The world is in fact small, but it's even smaller than it's ever been. And you can connect to people in remote parts of the world, folks that you may never meet or that you feel close to as a result of the web. And I think right now we're developing curriculum. So this is not just about fitness. This is not just about entertainment. It's also about education. One project that we worked on recently was called the Legacy Workout, and we pair figures in history to figures in fitness moves. For example, the Tuskegee Airmen were a group of Air Forcemen here in the United States. They were Black Air Forcemen who were not allowed to serve in the general population in the military. And so they had to start their own unit, but they served very successfully. They all received Congressional Medals of Honor. And we have a move, lateral raises with weights. So imagine you have two dumbbells in both hands. Your palms are facing each other, and you raise your hands to your side like an airplane would fly. So we pair the move, the lateral raises, with the figurehead, and we explain why they're similar and why the move is inspired by the figurehead. And so a lot of folks who watched our movie didn't even know the Tuskegee Airmen existed, and now they do. So now they go do self-research, and they investigate and invest in learning, book learning, mental learning, body learning, and then ultimately just understanding how they fit into the world through fitness, through historical figures. And I think that's as fun as well. So building on education, wellness, and art together is how we're going to scale this, and it's exciting, and I'm glad that we can share it with you today.
So it's hugely exciting, and you've got every right to be excited, because if I was creating this a couple of years ago, I think I would fall into the same trap that everybody else does. And you have this idea for fitness, so I would create some videos of myself doing stuff, throw them on YouTube, and kind of build it in the same way. But you're creating something that is so much more than this. It's going off into total different directions that, until you say it, I can't even perceive. So where are these ideas coming from? Are you in a mastermind, or do you just have close links with people that are giving you these things?
It really just comes from watching human beings. Being a history buff myself, it comes from exploring. It comes from adventuring. I mean, I don't set out to have ideas for films. I walk about and an idea will appear to me, or I'll sit reflective by a body of water and the waves will inspire something, or spark a memory, or even thinking back to my childhood, what the things I did that made me happy. Climbing trees. Oh, the tree. What does a tree symbolize? The tree symbolizes rebirth and roots and bridging from past to future. Okay, great. We'll do a video about past to future and generations and multi-generational involvement. That's how things work for me. I don't necessarily, again, when I'm writing or blocking for a film, I don't set out to do one thing. It just comes to me, and I always carry around my little red book in my pocket and a pen behind my ear, and I'm always writing things down and being inspired by people. So it is people and nature that inspire me, and it just happens. I can't explain it.
Perfect. It's perfect. I'm going to play the words of Steve Jobs now, because he spoke back in 2005 about only being able to look back and know where you are now by connecting your dots. We've called it join-up dots. I'm going to play this because I really think we've already agreed that you're spot on for this. You're the perfect candidate for a show like Join-Up Dots. But this is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So what do you think about those words? Are they true to your life?
I would say so. I think Steve Jobs obviously is a phenomenal orator, and he probably will express it better than I did, and he does. But I think oftentimes things happen, you wonder why. But if you look back, you can say, oh, there was a reason for that. Oh, I did learn a lesson from that. If you were aware, oh, that was why I turned left there, so I can meet that person there, and then that person and I now have a relationship. Or I read that book because there was a passage I needed to reflect and do a close reading on something in the future. So I think those words are very great. I also think about this issue of the power of now and Eckhart Tolle and things like that, and being aware to the present. And he, I think, says you shouldn't worry about the past, but I think that's falsy. I think the past does inspire a lot. It can inspire fear, it can inspire fervor, it can inspire greatness. But for me, for Steve Jobs, and for you, obviously, I think looking back lets you know that you had to go through those things, however painful or exciting, to realize what you're doing now, and it's important.
No experience is wasted, is what I like to say.
But what happens if it is? What happens if you don't listen?
That's the problem, yeah, and that's the problem that takes us back to becoming aware and sort of reflecting and just slowing down every now and again, because I think a lot of people don't listen to themselves because they're just trapped in that 9 to 5, day in, day out, get to the weekend, do the daily chores, Sunday evening, sit down because you're going back to work again. And I think you do mentally have to decide that you are going to take time to become aware again.
Yes, most definitely.
So what scares you now, just before we sort of bring you onto the Sermon on the Mic and we send you back in time, with everything's going on in your life and you're pushing the boundaries of what is achievable and you're doing amazing things, what actually scares you when you lay in bed? Are there any things that you think, oh, I don't think I can pull this off?
What scares me? I would say the thought of not being able to make enough of an impact, that's scary. If we're talking about professionalism, making sure that I maintain my standard of care and my code of ethics for myself, that's scary. And not being swayed by monetization principles that are, again, untrue to who I am and my standard of care. I think those things are all scary. And then making the right choice. Now, as we discussed, we both have a lot of choices to do a lot of things. Making certain that I choose the right thing at the right time and that my timing is spot on. Because what happens if I make the wrong choice? Did I now take my trajectory in a direction that I didn't want to go, or did I align myself with the wrong people who aren't going to be fulfilling? That's scary.
Your site can go anywhere, can't it? You could have a chat, a lady, whatever. They could be in Bora Bora, and they could just log on and find the impetus to change their lives.
I think so, and I hope so. And I hope that they share with me if it does, so that we can continue maybe telling their story and featuring them and having them inspire other folks as well. It's a community of folks. It's really a movement-based movement.
I love it. It's exactly what this show is going to become, and you're an inspiration to me. You certainly are. I'm going to send you back in time now, and this is a part of the show that we call the Sermon on the Mic, and this is when you go back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back, what age would you choose, and what words would you say? Well, we're going to find out now, because now you're up, and this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Andia, not all that wander are lost. You are walking in your purpose when you play, when you explore, when you're climbing trees and jumping over lakes and playing with your friends and making new friends and expressing yourself and asking questions. Don't ever stop doing that, because that's what's going to make you who you are, and that's what's going to make you most happy and have you travel the world and affect change everywhere you go and with everyone you meet.
Andia, how can our listeners connect with you?
Online, the websites are andiawinslow.com, also thefitcycle.com. On Twitter and Instagram, my handle's @AndiaWinslow. And Facebook, it's Andia N.R. Winslow. And I would love to engage with folks, love to trade stories and have viewers send movies in of their own and collaborate. I love to collaborate. So hopefully I'll hear from you all. And David, thank you so much for having me on today. This has been great.
No, it's been a delight, and it was a delight just to see that sexy video on the tube this morning, really. That started my day off well.
Well, maybe you can send me some photos of you getting it in where you can fit it in, and I'll post them on the website.
Oh, I think I'm blushing. I don't normally blush. But very last question, just before I sign you off, is: do you believe that everybody can have a kick-ass life?
Yes, and I believe they should.
End of story. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I believe the only way to build our futures is by connecting our past. Andia, Winslow, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Have a wonderful day.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.